Hi, I'm Cameron. I'm a fourth year, so I was doing a Masters, and I'm in the first team.
So I'm Ben, I'm in Men's Rugby Union and I'm a first year.
Hi, I'm Charlie, I'm in second year and I play for Unruxford 15.
Hi, I'm Louisa. I play for the Women's Rugby Club and I am in my second year.
I'm Seb, I play for the first team.
My name's Cam, I'm in third year and I play second team.
So in January this year, I was hospitalised with glandular fever, which put me out of rugby and most social activity for a good 6 months. Yeah, it had a big impact on my social life, my sporting life, and physically and mentally, I felt myself becoming quite drained with the sort of lack of involvement I had with not only like my own friends from home, but like within the rugby club and just general life at university.
Had a dislocation of my right shoulder, and yeah, most recently I tore my ACL, meniscus and MCL in our first home game against Leeds Beckett.
So I dislocated my shoulder 4 weeks ago. This is the first time that I've had sort of a long-term injury where it's taken sort of more than sort of a couple of months to heal.
So I've had sort of various injuries, foot injuries, knee injuries, but I've struggled a lot with concussion. So I think it was 2018 through to 2019. I had 3 concussions within a year, which was really hard. The first one I thought, okay, we're done. And then the second one came in the beginning of the 2019 season. And then the second one was also in the 2019 season, which was really hard. That was quite a big season for me. It was my first season playing for Harlequins, and I was with the England under-20s as well. So not getting any game time and not getting any experience with that was really hard.
But about 6 months ago, I ruptured my ACL in a training session and have had to have surgery with recovery time of between 9 and 12 months.
So I'm very injury prone. I've had a few sprained ankles and a few torn hammies. Recently just returning from a grade 2 hammy tear on my left hammy. Yeah, I think injury is part and parcel of rugby, and I think it's something that's not really given that much of attention. Personally, I really struggle not being involved. All of my best mates are in the club, so when you're not playing, you feel out of it. Especially if you've got some of your housemates playing, training, you feel a bit sort of out of it. And I think we could probably create a better sort of support mechanisms where you check in with coaches or with the physios on a more scheduled basis, so everyone knows where you're at with it.
I remember lying in hospital bed and being back at home and seeing all the squads being released and all the socials happening and stuff being put on the Facebook group chats. And well, because so much of life at university, and in the club, not only physically I couldn't play the games, I couldn't get involved in going on, the buses away, I'd get too tired and I had to deal with a lot of fatigue. So much of the social life is also based on, partying and having a good time after games, and because I couldn't drink and I couldn't go out as much, I felt myself really becoming uninvolved, and I was worried I'd lose friends within the club because I wasn't involved and I wasn't doing the things that everybody else was. So it made me certainly feel as if I'd lost sort of my sort of place within the club.
It's a bit of a tricky one, especially last year. Kind of managed to go through the whole season without getting injured. Having this injury happen in the first game, it's pretty tough. More so just because it's like the realisation, I guess, that you won't be playing rugby for the rest of the year. One for me now, for the rest of my university career. Yeah, and so on that, I guess, is kind of that feeling of being left out, especially in the performance programme. You end up spending kind of anywhere between 10 to 20 or 15 hours a week with the lads. So obviously that's where the majority of your mates come from, and so yeah, like the feeling of getting left out, not being able to play rugby is pretty tough, especially when we do a lot of training and a lot of gym. So kind of to go from 100 to 0 is pretty tricky.
It was really hard finding where I sat in the team. So was with a lot of big players, big names, and actually I wasn't able to get into the season properly. It's only until, I've got my first game back this week, for 3.5 years, which is it's quite a big deal. And since the beginning of the season, I've been doing some coaching with the women's squad rather than playing, which is really great that I've been able to do that. And I have really enjoyed having that integration.
First day of surgery, went home the next day, and it kind of hits you quite hard. Especially in the summer, all my friends were obviously going on holidays and I was sat in my bed on crutches with bandages all around my knee, on morphine, on a lot of drugs trying to keep me going. So mentally that was quite hard. Having the motivation to do exercises through the pain was obviously very difficult. And then as obviously I had the light at the end of the tunnel coming to uni in September, so like a fresh start, but obviously without that rugby element that I've had since I was 9. But as a fresher, it's hard to prove yourself within the team. Obviously turning up, being the face, meeting everyone as a performance squad member is very useful, but you still feel like a bit disengaged, not quite a part of the team, like obviously because you don't get to play with them. And
yeah, I think people don't appreciate how much you miss out when you're injured, socially, mentally, physically. It can take a lot out of you.
Well, I think myself, who had chronic fatigue and suffered a lot after glandular fever, I couldn't get involved in the club's normal social activities. So I think if we can come up with ideas and events that just rely on, only an hour or two, and just making it sure that it's just something that we can all turn up to, and there's no pressure on people can be involved, people can't be involved, whether that just be a coffee at David Ross or just a group trip to somewhere. I think there's definitely things that we can do which make everybody's life in UMRUC far more enjoyable and far more involved, whether you're injured, whether you're ill, or whatever the case may be.
I think, one of the main things to help out with coping with injury comes from having good structures and support structures in there. And that can either be kind of as informal as some of the senior lads or some of the older guys just touching base with you and checking out how you are. And even as far as, the coaches just coming and seeing where you can get involved. As I'd say, that's probably been the hardest part, is going from being quite a loud member of the team to obviously not being at training and not really having much of a voice anymore.
So I think creating opportunities for players with injury, so regardless of the injury, what can they do to still be involved at the training sessions? So can they have a coaching role? Can they be leading a drill at training? Because part of the fun of training is actually being involved. So standing on the sidelines, you're just watching and feeling a bit jealous. Whereas if you can get involved, still have that banter within the squad and have a bit of fun without actually having to play and focusing on your rehab and whatnot. So a massive thing with concussion is you can't drink. So Wednesday night socials, actually, you can't get involved with them with concussion. So creating opportunities outside of Wednesday night for people to socialise. So whether it's meeting up for coffee after a training session, a pizza night or whatever. I know other societies do on a Tuesday evening before a game, pasta party, that sort of thing, where it doesn't matter if you're playing or not, bring some pasta along and everyone can socialise, that sort of thing.
If every fresher or injured player had a time during the week set out, like maybe even before a training session, where you could just talk over things, injury related or not injury related, because I think it is important, like from injured players, to help each other, like your coping mechanisms, how you're doing obviously is a key thing. But yeah, I think just coffee, like anywhere outside the rugby environment, I think is key, because you spend a lot of time like inside the rugby environment.
I think definitely higher up in the club, a lot of players get a lot of help and support with their injuries, and I think it's definitely noticeable that if you're a top player and you're in one of the higher teams in the club, everyone's asking you oh, when are you going to be back, or asking you how your recovery is going, how's your rehab, what's the time scale. But I think lower down in the club there could be a lot more brought into the culture almost to sort of emphasise that and make sure that we're asking everyone sort of, oh, when are you going to be back? Sort of, oh, we need you, mate. We're struggling, or we're not struggling. We want to see your face back in the game. Sort of.
Everyone can take accountability and checking in. If it's your teammate, that's the time that they really need an arm around their shoulder the most. And coaches-wise and physios and everyone just really try and help them. I think it just, like anything with mental health, I think just asking the lads how they are. I think the one time that people need it the most is when they're injured. They really need the lads, the coaches, all of the clubs to just check in, make sure they're right, ask how their injury's coming along, how their rehab's going, and just provide support really.